Richard. Branson's story begins long before the world knew him as the rebel billionaire, the founder of Virgin, or the man who challenged giants with nothing but courage and creativity. His journey starts as a dyslexic child growing up in London, where reading felt like climbing a mountain barefoot. While other children solved books and numbers easily, Richard struggled even with simple sentences. His teachers believed he wouldn't achieve much in life. In fact, one of them told him directly, "Branson, you will either end up in prison or become a millionaire." What nobody realized was that this difficulty became his superpower. Because he struggled to understand traditional learning, he learned something far more powerful: how to understand people, how to listen, and how to turn ideas into bold action. This became the foundation of everything he would build in the future. As Richard grew older, he was never motivated by grades or traditional paths. He was motivated by freedom. He wanted to prove that life doesn't reward the smartest person in the room. It rewards the boldest. At the age of 15, he dropped out of school and decided to start something of his own. And with absolutely no experience, no money, and no support, he launched a small magazine called Student. He worked from a small basement, writing articles, making phone calls, and convincing advertisers that his young publication had potential. Most people laughed at him, but Branson didn't stop. He believed that ideas grow only when pushed with courage. Even when the magazine made no money, he continued printing, continued promoting, and continued believing. That belief became the first spark of Virgin. One day, while working on the magazine, Richard realized something. Young people loved music, but music stores were overpriced. So he took a risk. With just $300, he started selling records through mail order. He had no office, no marketing, no fancy store. He simply placed an ad, collected orders, and bought records at lower prices. Slowly, orders began coming in. People loved his service and prices. Virgin Records was born quietly, without anyone expecting it to become a historical brand. That small decision, just selling a few records, turned into a revolution. Soon he opened his first physical store. The store wasn't serious or formal like other big record shops. It was fun, it was welcoming, and it felt like a community. Young people loved it. Virgin became more than a name, it became a culture. But the real breakthrough came when Richard Branson made the boldest decision of his life. He decided to start a record label, Virgin Records, with zero experience in the music industry. Everyone told him it was impossible. How could a 20-year-old dropout compete with multi-million-dollar companies? Branson didn't care. He believed in doing the impossible. Virgin signed artists nobody else wanted. Unknown musicians, strange styles, risky albums, Branson signed them all. And then something magical happened. Those very artists became global stars. When Virgin signed the controversial artist Mike Oldfield, his album Tubular Bells sold millions worldwide. Suddenly, Richard Branson wasn't just a young entrepreneur. He was a force the industry couldn't ignore. Virgin Records exploded with success. Soon, artists like the Rolling Stones, Janet Jackson, Genesis, and even the Sex Pistols became part of the Virgin family. What began with $300 was now becoming a global empire. But with every achievement, Richard wanted bigger challenges. And his next challenge was so insane that people thought he had lost his mind. Branson wanted to start an airline, Virgin Atlantic. This decision became a turning point that tested every part of him. At that time, airline giants like British Airways dominated the skies. They were powerful, rich, and respected. Everyone believed Branson couldn't compete with them. He had no experience, no planes, and no background in aviation. But what he did have was courage. He leased a single second-hand plane and launched. Virgin Atlantic with just one aircraft. His first flight was delayed due to a technical issue, and people mocked him, calling Virgin a joke. But Richard kept going. He personally visited passengers, apologized, entertained them, and made everyone feel special. This became Virgin's identity: care, fun, and world-class experience. But British Airways didn't like Virgin's rising popularity. They tried to crush Virgin through smear campaigns, false accusations, and unfair tactics. Virgin's business began collapsing. Financial losses piled up. It was the darkest phase of Richard's life. But instead of giving up, he fought back legally, won the case, and emerged stronger. The world saw a new version of Branson: fearless, unstoppable, and unbreakable. Even with the airline stabilized, Richard faced another huge challenge. To keep Virgin Atlantic alive, he had to sell his beloved creation, Virgin Records, the company he built from scratch, the company that made him who he was. When he signed the papers, he cried. He truly cried. It was like letting go of a piece of his soul. But he did it anyway, because leaders do what is necessary, not what is easy. The sacrifice saved Virgin Atlantic and kept his dream alive. After that, his journey became even bigger. Richard expanded Virgin into trains, telecom, health, finance, and even space travel. Virgin became one of the most diverse empires in the world. And then came his boldest dream: Virgin Galactic, a company created to send ordinary people to space. People laughed again. The world doubted him again. But Richard had been doubted his entire life, since the day he struggled with dyslexia, and every time he proved people wrong. In 2021, Richard Branson flew into space himself, fulfilling a childhood dream and becoming a symbol of what courage can achieve. But what makes Branson's story truly inspiring isn't just his business success. It's his attitude toward life. He believes in kindness, in adventure, in taking risks, and in turning failures into lessons. He says, "You don't learn to walk by following rules. You learn by doing and by falling over." His life proves that failure isn't the opposite of success. It is the path to success. The more you fail, the more you grow. The more you try, the more you win. From a dyslexic boy who couldn't read, from a dropout who couldn't fit into school, from a risk-taker who started with just 300 tools, to a billionaire who built an empire from nothing, to a man who reached space with his own company. Richard Branson's journey teaches one thing: success is not about being perfect. Success is about being brave. It's about taking the leap even when you're scared. It's about believing in yourself when no one else does. It's about trying again and again, even when the world doesn't believe you can win. Branson proved that the world belongs to those who dare. Not the strongest, not the smartest, but the boldest,